Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on the September 20th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. They also play the show at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. And if you can't listen to those two shows, please go to my long-standing website at arcticbeacon.com, and you can get shows going back over a decade regarding the Vatican-led New World Order. Okay, today is part 16 of what I call the greatest stage play ever produced in the history of mankind, the Presidential Elections 2016. And before I get into my movie review of today's segment, let me just make a few comments about what's going on in the world today, which is really an offshoot of this great stage play. They put on a new performance every day. And today, President Obama made his last speech to the United Nations, a Luciferian organization. And his comments were quite interesting. I'll just paraphrase a couple. He said we should not denigrate a great religion of Islam, and downplayed the terrorist movement in this world, even though ISIS, a creation of, like I've said many times, the CIA, the Jesuit order, as well as Vatican instigated, has now blossomed out into 28 countries. And recently in New York, there were 3 bombings. A couple were diffused before the explosions, as well as a knife-wielding Islamic terrorist going through a mall in St. Cloud, Minnesota, wielding a knife, cutting 8 people before he was shot by a police officer. So I guess really there's no problem. It took Barack Obama, who I consider nothing more than a radical Muslim sympathizer, it took him about 30 minutes into a speech before he even recognized the problem. And we all know when he's speaking in front of this group of Luciferians what their goal really is. When they say peace, it really means war. When they say we're going to develop a great country, a great world, what they're really saying is they're going to create a one-world government of controls, a one-world false religion set up by the Antichrist in Rome. These things are known to many people, but we continue to listen to the stage play, the double talk, because now let me start today's episode of the greatest stage play ever produced in the history of mankind. We left off speaking about the actor Barack Obama. Nothing more than someone selected, just as a Hollywood actor is selected, to play a part, and he's paid for it. He'll get paid handsomely when he leaves office. And secondly, we're talking about the writers of this script, the Jesuits, the great educators. Writing every line and verse and every story and every movement is coming right from them, passed on to the actors, who in this case, the main actor in this year's presidential stage play, one of them is Barack Obama. The other 2 we've talked about, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. We'll get to them in a minute. But sticking with my theory on Barack being a movie reviewer of this great play, since he took office, his goal was basically to weaken America. This is the plot they're writing for us. It was to basically fund and destabilize the Middle East so that ISIS could grow. We've talked about how in their plot we've uncovered connections they don't like to tell us. But to be a good movie reviewer, you have to read between the lines. And we've showed the connection of the CIA through Hillary Clinton and this being Secretary of State, and the funding of weapons going from Libya to Syria into the hands of ISIS. We've also shown connections to ISIS and the Jesuits by a Father Dal Oglio. Yes, who actually, if you check out his history, has been working as a conduit between Syria, ISIS, CIA, and Hillary Clinton. So, why don't we hear about that? The episode never gets in. It's a great one I've written. Many other people have talked about it. Why can't we get that in their story? Because the Vatican is the producers. The government works for them. The writers write their story, and anything that doesn't fit into their outlook doesn't get in the movie. It's just like Hollywood. They do the same thing there. They have agendas. For example, let me give you how they work together. There is a show on ABC coming out called The Designated Survivor. And what this talks about is there's always one cabinet member when the whole cabinet gets together for a meeting. You know, I love how they talk about these things. Cabinets get together. When do the kitchen tables get together? When do the refrigerators get together? You know, everything is de-emphasized. These are people that work for supposedly the people of the United States who are representatives, but that's not how it really works. So let's say, we'll use their terminology, the cabinet gets together, and all of a sudden in this, and they keep one person out of the cabinet meeting, in case of what? In case the White House or Congress gets blown up. Well, that happens in this movie. This is a Hollywood movie. This is how they work together with us, you know, with this stage play. And Kiefer Sutherland is the one cabinet member, unqualified to be president, of course, that is the designated president. So he becomes the president of the United States after the White House is blown up. Now, what a great Hollywood movie. You know, unbelievable. Are they telling us what they're going to do? Who knows? But anyway, Hollywood is similar to what they do in Washington. It's just basically better in Washington because they can turn their movie into reality by basically the people of the world in the country believing what they're doing, which is a total lie. If no one believed them, we'd just go on our merry way and the elections would be a fraud. There wouldn't be any elections because no one would vote. The only votes that would count, I guess, would be 3-2 in favor of Trump, or his family would vote, Clinton family, whoever had the most family members. So what I'm getting at is this. They can do what they want. And in this particular case, the Obama character, that was his role. And if you look at every policy that he has done, which we went over yesterday in their movie, has been basically helping the enemy more than the American people. He won't even mention radical Islam. In fact, he said today it was a great religion. Now, the scenario that should be taught in this movie is that I said yesterday, who created this religion? Where did it come from? Why are people running around yelling Allah Akbar and killing people? Now, I had to watch this last night. And this leads into another part of this movie, which you see all over the internet. And I wonder why people even bother with this. But you know what? Since it's a movie, everyone is going to talk this way. Now, let me get to the point. It's called 3 Days of Terror. And it was a French translation, translated into English, of the Charlie Hebdo murder and the 12 people that were killed in his office building and on the street in France. We all remember Charlie Hebdo. He was the journalist. He had a magazine and he printed cartoons regarding Muhammad. And this apparently upset this great religion, as Barack Obama stated, and caused these people to go and kill all these people for a cartoon. And the reason was they were defending the Prophet Muhammad. Now, where the heck does this come from? Listen to what I'm going to get at here. So then there was another guy working with them that took over a kosher deli, a restaurant, or food store in France. And he killed another 4 people before all these hostages were rescued. And he was talking back and forth to the authorities about why he was doing this. He was upset that the United States, along with the West, was indiscriminately bombing and killing women and children in Iraq, in the Middle East. And, you know, now can you see in their plot why these people are angry at innocence? It is the plot that is the important thing here. How did this get started? Why are we indiscriminately bombing? Who's creating this war? Of course, the Jesuits. This is their plan. They have to, in the plot for this movie, create this strife between Islam and the West and Christianity. Of course, the innocent people here, we don't hate Muslims. Innocent people don't hate us. It's the war they create, the money they flow into the terrorist groups that they fund, that creates all this. And so you pit these two ideals, these spiritual differences together to kill on both sides. Not only, and it's working marvelously for them. We're killing thousands of people in the name of democracy and freedom to protect us, while they now create this band of Islamic terrorists that are coming over here, and their intent is to wipe out Christianity. Just look at what they're doing in certain parts of Africa. What they're doing with Christianity in the Middle East. It's gone. They're cutting people's heads off. It's a war created for this movie that's actually real. That's the beauty of this, and from their point of view. And it is an utter disgrace that we watch it and believe it. You can't help but watch it because you live in it. But to believe what they say, to believe what Obama just stated to the UN, I mean, those words I listened to, it's like listening to the Pope tell us that he's the vicar of Christ and he's God on earth, and we believe it. So we have Islam, a very violent religion. How he could say it is a noble religion when you read the Quran is he's completely in the pocket of the creators of Islam, who I contend were the Vatican back in the 600s and 700s, when they needed to do the same thing back then that they're doing today. We've done shows on that. That's the episode that should get in this movie. It never does, because we don't have any control over it. Okay, and I'm going to get into more. And I'm going to show how Islam progressively takes over countries, depending on the amount of Muslims that are there. And we're going to look back to America and show how Catholicism has taken over this country in a more subtle way for the same end, and the similarities between the two. That's the key. And that's something that no one's going to deal with in this movie, because you know why? The producers, the money men, the writers aren't going to have it. Just like if you went to Hollywood with something. If I went, why not do a Hollywood movie about this? The reason is they work together with the movie makers in Washington and in London and in Rome. It's all a game they play. And you're not going to get your story in anywhere. You won't get it in the mainstream media. The closest you'll get is, well, we have radical Islam here and we have to get rid of it. And then the liberals, the liberation theologists, Jesuit liberals that have taken over our country as socialist communists, they won't even admit it. Today, one of their surrogates gets on and says, well, you have a 1 in 3 billion chance of getting killed by terrorism. And it's really not that bad. And their theory is basically, let's kill everybody, but do it slowly. I'm not even getting into some of their other plans. But the point, what I wanted to really say to that man was, I'm going to say something maybe archaic and out of political, it's not too politically correct, if I may. But since we're a Christian country, would you agree to that? And they, of course, go, yes. Not knowing, realizing they're Luciferian. And I'd say something like, did you ever hear the verse in the Bible that says when we all are one body and when one hurts, the other hurts? Oh, they don't even care about that. So we can't get anything in spiritually or regarding Christianity. In fact, I presented yesterday clear evidence that this administration, the Vatican, and the rest of them are protecting Islamic terrorism in this country, groups, Islamic radical Muslim groups, some of which you can get videos of them training in these woods in Georgia with weapons, and they allow them to continue. They're not even being monitored because it's considered racial profiling, and the administration has sent down orders. You're not to racially profile. So they're allowing Islamic terrorists to function in this country, and I presented that was even in the mainstream media. So you know that's only the tip of the iceberg, and I'm going to present today a little bit beneath the surface of the iceberg of really what's going on. And secondly, I showed you that in the same breath, Pope John Paul II said we have to get rid of these splinter Christian groups that don't agree with me, the God of earth, who's really Satan here, who's really the Antichrist. And so they're targeting Christian ministries like the Tony Alamo Ministries and others. They targeted a ministry of the relative of Samuel Morris, who, if you go back and read his books about warning America back in the late 1800s regarding the Vatican threat here, they're still targeting this woman's small Christian ministry that's preaching the same thing. So they are targeting Christian ministries but allowing Islamic radicalism to grow here. So what do you think they're doing in this movie? So before I get into that, let me make a couple comments because I'm getting a little bit upset with all the attention that's put on two areas here in this movie. And the reason I'm doing it is I don't think it's a waste of time, but you got to realize that it really doesn't matter. And what I mean is there's a whole spew of videos and people talking about every one of these things as a false flag. People really don't die, and it's really really a government operation. Now, it may be a government operation. It may be, we all know that. We all are in agreement. But this idea that people don't die, I wonder why you even care about it. Because don't you realize in Hollywood, have you ever been involved in a Hollywood movie? I have. So I know how it goes on. I know how people put on blood packs. I know how they make people look dead when they're not dead. I know how they shoot people and they really don't die. I know how they've done this, but think about it. When you watch one of those, it is in your mind that they really do die, right? Or, if you just sat there and you didn't feel emotion. And I'll tell you, I've been in some movies where you see death, you see destruction, you feel it. It is the outcome that counts, whether it's real or not. So, to spend time on that, okay, fine. You can do that, but it doesn't matter if it was real or not. It is what most people perceive as real that's the important thing. Now, you can go in depth and, just like, okay, when you watch a movie with Gregory Peck in it, and then there's this big, huge scene where there's these, things going on, and are you going to spend your whole time thinking about whether that's a body double doing that stunt or whether it was Gregory Peck? Are you going to spend all your time thinking about that? No. You know they use body doubles. You know they don't kill people in Hollywood, so why don't you think they do it here? But it's the perception that matters. So I'm glad these people point that out, but to me it's standard procedure in a movie. So I'm saying probably they've done this at times. But the point is, what's so unusual? Their perception of death, for example, whether they killed 3,000 people in the World Trade Center or whether the people in the Boston Massacre actually were killed, is important to those, 1% of people that dig into it? And then the criticism comes, oh, did you see on the internet all these people think it really didn't happen? Where 99.9% of the people believe they're dead, so they are dead. I guess the only people who would matter are the people that died. And then again, you don't know who they are because they use body doubles in their movie just like they do in Hollywood. And that leads us to the point I see ever since Hillary Clinton started to collapse. That's the hag actress that's been around for too long. I don't know why they're trying to keep her career going, but I guess she's got a financial interest with the producers that they can't break the contract. But she's been collapsing. She's been staring out into space while she's giving a speech. She looks like she's half dead half the time. And then everyone, I mean, all of the things that are coming out about her, okay, is she alive? Is she dead? Is there 2 or 3 body doubles that replace her? And I'll tell you what, I am sure there are. I'm looking, and sometimes it doesn't look like the same woman. And then people are figuring out how they do the audio. There's something in her mouth. And then they go through the whole, and that's fine. But don't you expect it in a Hollywood movie? What's the difference? Do you think they really care about her? They could put any person, as long as they're Hillary, it's not uncommon for secret societies to kill people, then put them some other place and they resurrect as another person. It's part of their occult. It's not uncommon that they could use a body double. Let's say Hillary Clinton is dead and there's a woman that looks just like her. Do you think they're ever going to tell you the truth? And what would be the difference? People believe it's Hillary Clinton. That's all they care about. Now, if they want to replace her before the election, they can do that too. If they want Obama to take over and do something, they can do that too. If they want Trump to win, they can do that too. So they control the movie. All I'm saying is that this idea that Clinton is dead or she's having body doubles, to me, that's what they do in movies, so I'm sure they're doing something there. But the perception of 99.9% of the American people is going to be that that is Hillary Clinton. That's all they care about. And they're going to do everything in their power to keep the power into this the liberal group this day. That whatever they want to do in their movie, they're going to try to do it. Now, they also have written this movie, so they know what's going to happen down the line on November 8th. They know what's going to happen. So we're just going to have to speculate, in a sense. And each of us wonder, what would it be like if the actress Hillary Clinton was the president? What would it be like if Barack Obama's term, if the election was terminated for some catastrophic cause and he retained possession of the White House? What would happen if the actor Donald Trump was selected to be president? How would it affect you, the extra in the movie? And that's all you are, just like me. We're just an extra. You know, how much is an extra? You ever been on a Hollywood set and been an extra? I have. You're treated like crap. You get the worst food. They'll keep you there for hours, pay you little. If you get hit by let's say they make a mistake and you get hit by a lighting boom, they don't care. Hell, you're just an extra. In fact, they ask you to bring your own clothes, bring your own food sometimes, and just sit there, and then what do you get, $25, $50? You might spend 12, 15, 20 hours there. They don't care about the extras. And so, when I was an extra, I can remember doing it a few times until I got a better part in the movies. These stars, like Clinton, like Obama, like Robert De Niro, like all these people, they get the greatest treatment. They get everything. They get body doubles. They get the whole works. They get private airplanes, the whole shot. So we're going to come back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal and continue with the greatest stage play ever produced in the history of mankind, Presidential Elections 2016. Back in 3 minutes.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, welcome back to the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on the September 20th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to the Investigative Journal on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. This is part 16 of the greatest stage play ever produced in the history of mankind, Presidential Elections 2016. I'm your movie reviewer, Greg Anthony, and we're going to discuss today, we're going to continue in this second half hour, discussing the plot that the writers of this movie are doing, the Jesuits, and specifically talk about whether the actor first, Barack Obama, one of the lead actors in this movie, whether he's been given a script to create radical Islam in this country, to allow it to fester and grow, and whether his policies in the movie overseas in the Mideast and around the world have helped our enemies in America more than the American people. And we've presented a number of things on our last two shows showing his policies are sympathetic to radical Islam. Then yesterday we presented even what was in the mainstream media regarding the Clarion Project, where it showed that somehow the administration has given orders that allowing these radical mosques and these radical Islamists to even practice their evil ways here. And the government seems to allow it to happen. So go to my show yesterday or look up the Clarion Project. That's in the mainstream. Now, the question becomes, I've shown that Christian groups that oppose the writers and the producers of this script and want to get their story in have been targeted, i.e. the Alamo ministry. It's Pastor Tony Alamo put in jail for 175 years. So I said to myself, let's look at a country that's been, in a sense, in the news recently, and to show you really behind the scenes how the Obama-Clinton cartel is supporting an Islamic radical, giving him money, keeping him in a mansion in the Pocono Mountains, and it goes under the radar of even the mainstream media. It should be a top story, and it's not. Now, here's exactly what I'm talking about. If we look at Turkey, the coup in Turkey, we've presented evidence that the U.S. CIA-backed coup in Turkey to bring down Erdogan had its roots in a movement called the Gulen movement, a Turkish Islamic Muslim cleric who's now in the United States. He's been here since 1999, given protection by President Clinton at the time, and now protection, well, ever since Clinton. Every president, Bush and Obama, as well as this guy giving money to the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton. She knows very well what's going on. Now here's the point. That coup failed, and that put a little bit of a problem into the Obama administration and the Clinton plans to destabilize Turkey, perhaps our last firewall defense against radical Islam in the Middle East. Turkey being a Muslim country, but a democratic, a little bit a hybrid country in a sense. You got to look into the history of Turkey. Now what happens is, that failed coup exposed a lot. It exposed exactly the United States' intentions behind the scenes. And how could we do that when we have nuclear weapons and a military base in Turkey that were at risk? The administration here, after the coup failed, Erdogan barely saving his life, Putin giving assistance to Turkey, and in fact alerting him of the coup, which gave him a window of 15 to 20 minutes to get on his airplane and get out of Dodge. Might be added that Merkel, who's also a member of this cabal, that's Merkel, the leader of Germany, would not allow his plane to land there, and Erdogan was a little bit mad because he'd done some favors for Germany. So anyway, Erdogan returns. He's depicted in the mainstream media as a radical Muslim, and the United States basically never admitted to backing the coup, but that's how he was depicted. Now Erdogan comes back and starts jailing thousands of people, and it's looked in our media as he's a bad guy. And he comes out and states that what he's doing exactly is putting all of these Gulen infiltrated people into his country, who are the real radical Islamists, in jail so that he can protect his people in the country. So, is that true? Is Gulen, who's now in America, a radical Islamist? Well, I remember 10 years ago. This is long before any of this stuff happened. I was talking to sources in Rome, Leo Zagami being one, and there were several others, about the Gulen movement, what it was doing in Sweden, and actually him telling people he's a moderate when he was funding and creating radical Islam all throughout Europe. This was going on 10 years ago. And he was doing the same thing in Turkey to destabilize that. He's also been outed as a CIA asset, working for our government. So when he'd already planted the seeds of all of this stuff in Europe and in Turkey, he gets protection from Clinton, and now he's in the Pocono Mountains, right? Protected. Now, why is this important? It's important because the story even came out in the American press that Erdogan wanted Gulen returned, extradited from America to stand trial for his crimes against his country as a radical Islamist. In the beginning, when that first came out, the American government refused. Recently, Kerry, maybe 3 weeks ago, was over in Turkey, and when Erdogan said, listen, you return him and maybe we can get back to stable relations here. Kerry said, yes, we will, but it's going to take time. Now, what does that mean? That means he'll never be turned over. Nothing's been said since then. And don't you think they're all complicit in this little movie they're presenting? All of them. I don't hear much from the mainstream media. I don't hear anything from the Trump campaign regarding Gulen. I don't hear anything. And the reason is they're all paid by the same people to present this side of the movie. Well, a story did appear by a guy by the name of Joshua Cook. And let me just read a part of it to you. And this came out in 2015 or 14. And here's an interesting, let me read the headline, Exclusives. FBI whistleblower and teacher expose Islamic Gulen movement infiltrating U.S. through charter schools. When asked, now this is a teacher who works for the Gulen movement, if she considers Gulen a threat to U.S. interests, she responded 100% absolutely. What happened to this whistleblower? I'd like to know. In rural Pennsylvania, a Turkish-born Muslim, imam, lives in self-imposed exile. The imam, Fethullah Gulen, came to the United States in 1999 due to what was cited as health problems and has stayed in the United States after gaining his visa with help from former CIA officials, as well as Clinton, and I add that. So here we go. We know he's a CIA asset. He's living in a mansion in the Turkish mountains. He's not just living in some little apartment. Let me tell you what he started here. The FBI previously resisted granting permanent residency to Gulen. According to leaked cables, parts of the U.S. government believe that Gulen is a radical Islamist, all right, whose moderate message cloaks a more sinister and radical agenda. So all of those things that we talked about yesterday in the Clarion movement, I think are dwarfed by this movement, which no one talks about. Gulen-inspired schools, since he's got here. Now remember, he came here with Clinton, Hillary, and Bill's approval. So you don't think they're inspiring radical Islamic terror against the American people? We can't get this story in their movie, but that's their plot. And when you try to do it, you can't do it. And when you hear any word that comes out of the actress Hillary Clinton, she won't even say radical Islam. Now, Gulen-inspired schools here. Now, he's listen to this, are the largest charter network in the U.S. and receive approximately $150 million a year in taxpayer money. You, the American people, in their plot, in their movie, are supporting radical Islam right here with your money. And you don't think this administration, their plot in this movie is to destroy Christianity in America? Well, you better think again. Now, there's about 130 of these charter schools in 26 states, where the majority of teachers are from Turkey, as well as many of the contracts for construction and operation have gone to Turkish businesses. Now, what is that about? Americans are out of work. Teachers want jobs. First of all, the Obama administration and Clinton opposed charter schools. In fact, they favor the teachers union, who gives them a lot of money, and they don't allow even young blacks, young Hispanics to go to their own schools in these poverty networks they've created in the inner cities. But they're giving $150 million a year to inspire Gulen schools and bringing over Turkish workers and businesses. These actions have raised red flags for the U.S. government, but what gets done? Nothing. Because who's in control? Georgetown University and the Jesuits, who want this to continue. The schools themselves are considered high quality and are focused on STEM-based learning, something that proponents of the Gulen movement claim is lacking in U.S. education. So what are they doing? Look at the immigration problems that Germany and France and England are having. You already have over 80 Sharia courts functioning with the approval of the government in London. Now, when asked, why don't you get rid of those schools, they say, well, they just go underground. Well, what do you think is going to happen here? And what do you think Sharia law is? Boy, we got a lot to learn. This movie's getting good, isn't it? And wish this episode could get in. Now, in the United States, many of the Gulen schools have long waiting lists, but that comes at a price for our American teachers. Our tax dollars are paying for them to come over here and take our jobs. Said Mary Addy, a teacher. They want to give you the impression that they're just hardworking guys over here to try and educate our kids because American teachers are just too stupid. According to Addy, those Turkish teachers, visa applicants, oddly include English teachers. Gulen brings in foreign teachers, then asks for a cut of their salary. She learned this after marrying a Turkish teacher. She said that after he was paid, he'd cash the check and return 40% of his salary back to the school for a secret fund used by the movement. Now, what do you think that secret fund is? I'm asking that. I think it's the big Trojan horse here. Not only do we have these radical mosques that are allowed to function, that are going to destroy this country, we have a movement here that is working underground, paid by you, the taxpayer. And because of this, it's caused many to wonder the actual intent of the Gulen school. Well, if you listen to my shows, I'll tell you the intent. It's to bring down Christianity, the West, and create Sharia law in this country. That's the intent. Now, according to U.S. government documents released by WikiLeaks, deep and widespread doubts remain, however, about his movement's ultimate intentions. We have evidence of the pressure that the various circles of his movement put on people they have drawn in. For instance, severe pressure on businessmen to continue to give money to support Gulenist schools or other activities. We have multiple reliable reports that Gulenists use their school networks, including dozens of schools in the U.S., to cherry-pick students they think are susceptible to being molded as proselytizers of radical Islam, and we have steadily heard reports about how the schools indoctrinate boarding students. One public school teacher from the South spoke with Joshua Cook, the writer of this article, on condition of anonymity, said her students recently won a free cultural trip to Turkey through an art contest sponsored by the Gulen organization called the Atlantic Institute. The teacher had a terrible experience. They take you on this grueling 10-day death march through Turkey, said the teacher. It was exhausting. After being food deprived, the Gulenist hosts brought us to a building called the Journalist and Writers Lighthouse, which was compound. This is where we got the cult spiel for the 2 hours. The speaker told us Fethullah Gulen is an imam that sheds light on the dark waters of our time. So basically, why aren't these people, this recent bombing in New York, the guy was from Afghanistan, had lived here he was 20-some years old, lived here a long time. He's making trips back to Afghanistan, getting radicalized, comes back here, puts a bomb somewhere. But he's not, and the FBI knew about the guy, but he said, we can't racially profile, he just went to Afghanistan. Why don't we profile these people in the Gulenist movement to see what they're really all about? So the Trojan horse is already here, folks. That's in the plot, in the movie they are writing right now for us. And the teacher said this trip was not about moderate message of interfaith dialogue or Turkish culture. The whole purpose was to promote Imam Fethullah Gulen and his true intentions. The teacher added, the Gulen's movement ultimate goal is to open charter schools in the U.S. to funnel U.S. tax dollars back into the Gulen movement in Turkey. They skim just enough off the public taxpayers from these charter schools so it won't look suspicious. Gulen schools are among the nation's largest users of H-1B visas. In 2009, the schools received government approval for 684 visas, more than Google Incorporated, but fewer than a technology powerhouse such as Intel, 1,203, reported in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Critics also find it hard to believe that qualified American teachers in math and science are hard to find. Former president of the Parents Group for the Young Scholars of Central Pennsylvania Charter School, Ruth Hocker, stated, asking questions when popular, certified American teachers were replaced by uncertified Turkish men who often spoke limited English and were paid higher salaries. Now, I'm telling you something, folks. Look at this. Now, do you think that the Clintons don't know? Who brought him over here? Why does the FBI allow these schools to continue when they will shut down a Christian school? When they're taking God out of the schools in our country? What is going on here? Don't you understand? Their plot, and the Obama administration and Clinton allow this to continue. In fact, fester radical Islam. And this is a perfect example where the mainstream media will not cover this story properly because they've been told not to. They're controlled by the same people. They're part of the movie. They're basically the PR department for the big movie in Washington, D.C., and London, and in the Vatican. So you're not going to get the truth from them. So then where do you go? Go to the alternative media, and then you find they've been controlled as well. But you have radical Islam right here, and it's only going to get worse. Now, Trump is pointing that out. And so here's what's happening. In the movie, they're shoving it in your face. I'm just adding some things that need to be added to it so that you might get a clearer picture of where you really stand. And this is the important story. According to the Middle East Quarterly, in 1999, Turkish television aired footage of Gulen delivering sermons which revealed his plan to implement Sharia law and use controversial tactics to achieve his goal. Let's listen to his sermon, and why would anybody in our country bring him here and protect him and be a CIA asset unless they were involved in creating this? He says this: "You must move in the arteries of the system without anyone noticing your existence." Boy, it sounds like a Jesuit. And I'm going to read their Jesuit oath. "Until you reach all the power centers, until the conditions are ripe. They, the followers, must continue like this. If they do something prematurely, the world will crush our heads, and Muslims will suffer everywhere, like in the tragedies in Algeria, like in 1982 Syria, like in the yearly disasters and tragedies in Egypt. This time is not yet right. You must wait for the time when you are complete and conditions are ripe, until we can shudder the entire world and carry it. You must wait until such time as you have gotten all the state power, until you have brought to your side all the power of the constitutional institutions in Turkey. Until that time, any step taken would be too early, like breaking an egg without waiting the full 40 days for it to hatch. It would be like killing the chick inside. The work to be done is confronting the world. Now I have expressed my feelings and thoughts to you all in confidence, trusting your loyalty and secrecy. I know that when you leave here, as you discard your empty juice boxes, you must discard the thoughts and feelings that I expressed to you." So he sounds like a... Listen to this. Now do you know why Erdogan wants him back in Turkey? Why are we protecting him? He's sitting in the Pocono Mountains right now, getting $150 billion or more in taxpayer money to spread radical Islam. And that's their movie, folks. Now, did you listen to that first sentence? You must move in the arteries of the system without anyone noticing your existence. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Why don't we just quickly read the Jesuit oath? And here's something, and this is, we've showed you the Jesuit connection to radical Islam. It says this: Counter-Reformation War. Remember, I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity to present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants and liberals, as I'm directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flail, strangle, and bury alive with these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the wall. And it goes on to say that they will do anything to get their way. Now this is interesting, isn't it? You have written into this play, this play which started hundreds of years ago. This was back when the Jesuits were formed by Catholicism to kill Christianity that was growing in the Protestant Reformation. Then they, so now, since they already created Islam hundreds of years before, they can pit Islam against Christianity, and their main goal is to kill everyone. What do you think? There's a big huge war between the Sunnis and the Shia. They're killing each other. They're killing us. We're killing them. And guess who's benefiting? This small group of occult elitists who are controlling this movie. Their writers are benefiting. Their actors and close associates in the movie are benefiting. Supporting actors and all the others who are playing their part to make sure that what happens in the end, the one world government, the one world religion. Now we can look to what's going on right now in Jerusalem. There's an interfaith meeting which is being billed as bringing the whole world together, Jewish, Muslim, Christians, with the Pope leading this. And that's to bring on Islam, to bring them on this one world religion, which has nothing to do with Christianity and is only basically a Luciferian plot. Some say the Pope will leave office when he goes to Argentina. I believe that's in October. And something new will be created. This is their movie. We can't get an episode in. That's why I do this movie review, because the reviews you're getting from the mainstream and most of the alternative media are basically PR outlets for the movie makers. Hopefully you can gather more information on your own, because that's where it's coming from now. So many good people out there gathering information, telling us about this whole movie that's actually it's a reality show as well. They've done a great job, haven't they? Well, they've done a great job for themselves, but not for all the extras, and not for all the people that are being affected and killed in this reality show. Well, that was part 16. We'll come back tomorrow, talk more about this. Have a good evening. You're listening to the Investigative Journal. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. Back tomorrow. Have a good evening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.